to get back into life. But yeah, thanks for staying back and appreciate your time. But let me try and keep it as crisp and interesting for you all, because the topic that I want to talk about is on what we can do from an overall digital transformation perspective and look at enterprise automation at a holistic level. Okay, all big words. The question is, what I want to share with you all is a theory that I have been developing and living through my discussions internally when I was running operations, and also when I'm discussing with our customers. Okay, in terms of how we can drive this, what can we do to go beyond tactical tools, tactical deployment of automations at the ground level, at the operations level. There's been a lot of automation discussions that has happened during the course of the day. What I thought was to summarize all of those discussions, look at beyond what we can do from beyond RPA, beyond what Meera was talking about, citizen automation or low code, no code type of stuff. How can we go and look at the larger picture? Okay. So that's the context of my session today. But before I delve into the details of my theory and how it is going to work and what we can do as practitioners, what we can do as shared services leaders, okay, I thought let me address some of the challenges. And I'll bring you guys into the challenges there. So I have a few challenges that I've listed out in my slide. But before I go there, what are the biggest challenges that each of you would have faced when you're deploying automation? Any thoughts on that? Anything that you can bring notice to yourself? So everybody would have tried automation. We've done RPA, we've done low code, no code type of automation. So what are the biggest challenges that you would have?
First of all,
yes, but you can speak.
Hello. Hello, check.
That's fine. I'll come closer so we can probably speak on the mic itself. Yeah, go ahead.
One thing that I want to tell is resistance
to adapt and accept the change. Other one is, so the moment you go back for, understanding the exercise, fact finding, go back and then assess whether process automation can be implemented or not. Typically the resistance happens and then people don't share it. So what happens is, your automated idea, probably you would have an half-baked information and then try to do a POC of use cases and then try to develop, and then what happens is this fails.
Absolutely. Resistance to change is a fantastic and one of the biggest bottlenecks in taking any kind of automation to the organizations, to the stakeholder. Any other challenges that you have? I'm telling you there are 10 or 12 of them. We can keep on talking about it for the rest of the day. But any other thing that comes to your mind?
I think articulating what's in it for them. Articulating what's in it for
Absolutely. What is in it for me? What is in it for the stakeholder? Is a huge challenge, which is articulating that to him and making that person come on board. Absolutely. Thanks.
Fear of losing the job. Is a robotic automation is replacing my job. You should. Again, it comes to an articulation point of view.
Yeah.
That it helps. How it's going to helpful for them to move the value.
Fear of the unknown. Fear of what is going to come to you and those kinds of stuff. Any other thoughts?
Business analyst, hooking up on business analyst, basically the requirement planning.
Yeah, in terms of what will be the outcome, what kind of output that will come up, is it for sure, is it real or not? Absolutely, yeah. It's again a fear of the unknown.
And very high expectation.
Sorry, my friend, there are too many options there.
And user experience.
End user experience. In terms of how the end user experience will be. Will the customers be satisfied? Will the stakeholders be satisfied? Absolutely.
Confidence to believe the data. That's where people mostly see is what is the data you're giving, what is the authenticity of this.
Fear of the unknown, yeah, absolutely. Fear of the unknown. Any other from the backbenchers there? No? From my perspective, and I've done this for many years now, one of the number one challenge, of course, in addition to the fact that there's I'll bring all of that up, okay? And your challenge of resistance to change is there in my top 4 list, and this is again a top 4 list. I'm not saying the challenges that you mentioned are wrong, but these are the key challenges. And I would say one of the areas that we keep talking about is the fact that where the practitioners do not understand the IT roadmap, the IT roadmap of the organization. Okay, what happens is most of the automation project is housed as a shadow IT project. If some of you are familiar with the term shadow IT, it basically means that an operations team is building their own small tool and developing that and deploying that without knowing what the organization is doing at the larger IT roadmap. Okay, that is a big challenge, because what happens is when your systems change, your automation tools also need to change. Because once you move from SAP, I was talking to him, to SAP to S4HANA, then automatically your automation tool also has to change, because you need to align to S4HANA instead of SAP. You move from Oracle to Workday, automatically your automation systems and tools should change. So how are you understanding your IT roadmap of the organization, and how are you aligning your IT systems or automation tools to the larger IT roadmap? That's a critical piece of your transformation journey. The second one, of course, we talked about it quite depth in the overall day today, is process standardization. How is the processes standardized across different levels, different organizations? Okay, if you're talking about a global shared service organization, what happens is a process of procurement may run completely different from how it is run in the US versus how it is run in UK or versus how it is run in Germany. Entirely different in terms of how it is run in Asia, like Philippines or India or Sri Lanka or any of the ASEAN countries. So how are you making a global operating model, not just from an application perspective, but also from a process perspective? Okay, there's ad valorem discussion on garbage in, garbage out, okay, the whole day today. At the same time, how can we ensure that we are tactically aligned to ensure that we don't throw garbage into the automation? The third one is, of course, resource challenges. We talked about it in the chat earlier today and also during Dr. Vishnath's sessions in terms of how we can attract talent, retain talent, nurture them and those kind of stuff. The resource challenges there. What happens is, most people the transformation journey takes about 6 to 8 months time in an organization. Now, if you're not able to retain resources, the key resources that are involved with the transformation, then you have a challenge in terms of how you're going to drive consistent transformation or deliver the business case. That's an important area in terms of how you drive that. Because resources or the people who are working on these bots or working on these automation scripts and the applications are critical in driving and delivering the business case. So your retention of the resources is an extremely critical piece when you're driving digital transformation in an organization. And of course, fourth, we talked about the resistance to change, fear of unknown, bringing the stakeholders on board, bringing everybody on board is a critical aspect of this. Okay? And these are the challenges that we're facing. And I'm saying this is not new to one organization. This is not new to one region. This is not new to one type of delivery model or industry segment or anything like that. This is the case across industry segments, across the world, across all organizations. Whether it is a P&G, or a HP, or a Nestle, or Coca-Cola, sorry for using the word, I know, I specifically used it to involve graduate.
You're bang on.
Yeah, and any other BPO service providers that are in the marketplace. It is the same challenges everywhere, right? Now, let's look at how we can do it. I talked about the challenges and all those kind of stuff, but I want to talk about my theory in terms of how we can circumvent that, how we can drive that. But before I go into the framework of integrated automation, which is my core slide, I want to talk about what constitutes an automation journey. What are the constituents of an application landscape in an enterprise? Let's look at enterprise at a holistic level, not specifically from a company or an industry or any of those kind of stuff. Okay? And what are the areas that we can increase one? Let's draw the circles in concentric fashion. I'm not great with graphics, but this is something that I created, so pardon me for the graphics which is there. Look at systems of record. This is a terminology, it's not an industry terminology. I probably need to take, don't want to take credit for that, but we probably do some kind of trademarking there. This is more my terminology of what I would call a system that you record transactions with, like an ERP system, like SAP Oracle, where you're recording your financial transactions, your enterprise resource transactions in there. Then you have the banking systems for the banking industry, core banking systems and those kind of stuff. For CRM systems and HR systems. So you have, these are the systems of record where they are primarily there towards recording the transactions, recording the activities of workflow across that. Then, in addition to systems of record, you have to interact with these systems to your customers, to your stakeholders, to your vendors, to your various entities, whether your business partners or your delivery partners or your distribution partners in the ecosystem towards driving that. How are you engaging with them? What is the interface or integrations that you have with your engagement partners? What are your channels of engagements? Like phone systems or chat systems or your email systems or your EDI systems, whatever may be. What are your channels of engagement? And how well these systems are integrated to your systems of record. Okay? More often than not, we have seen as practitioners have been delivering services for various companies, is that the people who are involved with the operations, whether it is managing vendors or managing customers, they would, when a vendor calls for a invoice status as to what happens to an invoice, whether it's paid or not, they'll immediately go to the SAP system, look for what is happening to that based on the invoice number and provide the data. The vendors don't have access to the SAP system. If they had access to it, they won't have the call or they won't have to interface with you. They would have information available to them, right? Now, how well are we integrated? And similarly with your contact centers, customers and those kind of stuff. Now, what happens is that because of the fact that you don't have that well applications integrated, you create another layer of system, which is your system of transactions, where you have people who are basically picking up the queries or information that is required from your stakeholders. When I say stakeholders, I mean the employees, the partners, the customers, the vendors, and the entire ecosystem, and then understand what is happening to the transaction and delivering the service on behalf of the enterprise to these stakeholders, right? That is exactly what is happening in an organization, right? Now, these are systems of transactions where you have people-based services and you have these tactical robotics that are being developed, whether it is your RPA, whether it is your Excel-based macros or your small tools that you're developing at the ground level, which I would call keystroke automation or all those kind of stuff. Now, systems automation and channel automation allow you to build workflow systems. So when I say channel automation, I mean automated answer responses to your customers. Chatbots would be a channel automation. System automation would be a workflow engine where approval systems flow through in a manner, right? Now, what happens with all these things is, what is a best enterprise today from an entirely integrated, automated delivery model? What is your aspiration enterprise today? Most customers or most enterprises, based on a survey that we have done, wants to Uberize their systems, want to run like how a Uber would run or a Amazon would run, where absolutely there's no touch, there's no requirement for any of the users to attract. Customers would have access to the information, they will know where the transaction is and when it will be delivered, how it will be delivered, and all those kind of stuff. If there's a problem, they have a mechanism to resolve their problem through an automated mechanism. Okay? They want to Uberize it. Now, how can you Uberize it is when all the three circles that I'm drawing here are working one top of the other. That's why I said my graphics is extremely bad. I'll probably put a mechanism by which, if I have to put the three circles one top of the other and have an integration in all of them in a direct fashion, then that is when your enterprise is completely integrated and digitally transformed and automated. But in reality, what happens is, I've been very nice and conservative by having some kind of integration in there. Most organizations that I've worked for, including my past organization, I don't want to name them, you'll find it in my LinkedIn profile, and it's an IT company, their systems are disparate. You have the three circles not even integrated in three different areas, and not just three systems. You would have probably ERP systems, and I'm sure some of you will also have in your own environment, ERP systems, there will be some 5 different versions, 5 different instances that are set up in different parts of the world because you acquired some company. You are integrating the company. There will be different parts of the journey, right? So that is the situation that is today. And in order for you to run automation and drive digital transformation at all levels, it is important that you look at this at a larger picture. Look at the dependencies of these systems at a larger picture, and then try and build a framework that integrates appropriately into these areas. In effect, if you have to improve your digital transformation, you have to increase this pie. The pie that you got in the center, which is a small cone here, should be as big as a circle, which covers all the systems. That is when you are completely integrated and delivering the transformation. Now, the question is, this is a nice theory, very, very utopian from an industry point of view or from a company point of view. It will take ages, probably it will not cover our own lifetime as a work life, but how can we do that? Now, the key is we need to have a strategy in terms of how we can drive that. As long as our journey, our objective is defined, then we'll know what can be done, how it can be done. Okay? The next slide, I'm going to talk about how it can be done. Right? Yeah.
The system automation, you spoke about the workflows.
Yeah.
So this is a big question on that. So one of the key factors that people will have challenge in terms of when there is a change in the approval or mechanism, right? If there is a change in the people, that's a major challenge for implementation of workflow. Do you have any suggestions, recommendation, or best practice? And if there is a change in the approval, how do
The
you
reason
implement
why
it?
the change is not in sync, the approval request is not in sync with the ERP system. For example, since you're talking about SAP, because we had a past conversation, I'm referring to the fact that it's an approval system in SAP. The reason why the SAP system approvals has changed and it is not reflecting is because it is not integrated with your HR system. Because what happens is whenever there's a change in the approval process or there's a specific designated approval has left the organization, okay, the first system that will get updated is the HR system. And you'll automatically have a new approver already included. Now, you're not passing the rights of the HR approver or the HR change that has happened in the ERP system. That integration has not happened.
That's what we are doing.
Right? So effectively, you need to look at that integration as part of your automation journey to ensure that there's no fallout on that one. Right? That is what in a robotics terminology, we call it the fallout. Right? The moment there is a fallout, we have some people sitting there, sending those emails, escalating those emails, saying that, can you fix that? Right? So how can we fix that is integration. Right? Now, that's the reason why I've come up with this theory of how can we build an integrated framework for automation? Okay? And again, correct, please question, critique me. This is my theory. This is not an industry theory. But this is something that I've been talking about it and I've been discussing it in various forums, including my previous organization now. So what I've created is, from a framework perspective, a pyramid architecture in terms of how can we layer automation and how can we work towards automation at an enterprise level across different boards. Right? Now, first layer is, it's important that we need to bring automation at the grassroots level. I like the word grassroots because of the fact that it's very, very fundamental. It's very, very closer to the ground and more at the tactical level. Okay? We need to encourage automation. We need to encourage betterment of life or work from our employees at every step of the way. You cannot have a situation where an employee works for 12 months in a year and the first month he or she is delivering transactions a particular way and he or she delivers the same transaction in the same way at the end of the 12th month. There has to be a different way of delivering the same service that he or she would have brought in to ensure that there's an improvement in the work culture, improvement in how he or she has worked through the period, right? And that is important and critical to drive that kind of a culture in bringing what I would call as low code, no code. That's an industry terminology of how you drive automation at the grassroots level, at the, as Meera calls it, citizen automation, or at the front end of your employees, okay? And that's a culture you need to build. And it's easy to build. It's time to implement is 7 to 10 days, and it can be done. Anything that you want to do quickly can be changed, In addition to that, as you start building your activity level transactions where you're automating the tasks, automating the keystrokes at the ground level, you look at process level automation as the next step, which is the RPA, where we talked about bots ad valorem in the overall day-to-day. Multiple speakers talked about how RPA is deployed, what are the various tools that are there, and all this kind of stuff. Deploy RPA at the task level, at the process level. It's extremely critical you do that. Time to implement 3 to 4 weeks, but again, a critical phase of automation. When we kind of go up into the next one, talk about how can we build workflow migration as a framework towards automation. So you cannot just stop with task automation and process automation. You have to look at how can you do workflow migration and workflow automations in terms of how can I integrate SAP system with HR systems? How can I integrate SAP systems, HR systems with the CRM systems? How can we integrate SAP systems, CRM systems, and other systems with our own homegrown systems? There's a lot of, every enterprise has a bunch of systems that they have developed over a period of time. Whether it is your procurement system or some of the payroll systems in the companies, in the countries where there are Excel based, how can we integrate all of that into a workflow across the enterprise, where everything works in a cadence from one step to the end step. And these kind of activities will take about 3 to 4 months. Overlay that with your application upgrades, okay? And every enterprise would look at how can we drive application upgrades, whether it is moving from SAP environments to S4HANA, or whether you're moving from an on-premise environment like a PeopleSoft to a Workday type of environment, or moving to SuccessFactors, or CRM systems from whatever they are using to Salesforce or those kind of stuff. How can we integrate that? Now, every organization or enterprise to drive digital transformation have to look at all the 4 layers or levers for driving digital transformation. It's extremely important that these levers are working in cadence. Remember, one of the key areas that I want to talk about in the slide here is the time to implement in each of those layers. The time to implement varies depending on what is the complexity of each of them. And it is important that you drive this as a cadence across these different levers. To summarize, Shamin is getting up, so I know it's getting late in the evening, so this is a signal that I need to wrap up and finish up. So to summarize, basically what I want to leave you with is thoughts in terms of how we can do it and what we can do. I talked about the framework in the previous slide. Just want to summarize some 5 points in terms of what that is. One of the areas that we need to look at is understand our process in complete manner. Do an end-to-end study of the processes that exist in the organization. When I say processes, I don't mean only the tasks and the shared services activities, but look at it from an end-to-end perspective. Accounts payable from the time you buy, from the time you pay. How can you look at the steps that are involved and what can be done? Do a complete process mining of the step. I'm not selling any software here, but there are software and tools available. There are people who can deliver that service for you. Look at an automation ecosystem. Don't look at automation at a siloed level. Don't look at automation as a small project that you're delivering it at your team level or at your operations level. Look at automation as an entire ecosystem in the organization. Deliver that as a cadence across multiple levels or levers that you're talking about. Okay? And when you're choosing application partners, nothing against the sponsors, HighRadius and Answer here, look at tools and technologies that are open in nature. Okay? Don't get tied up to one particular tool, because what is today in vogue is not going to be the popular tool that is going to be 3 months down the line or 4 months down the line. Look at technologies and choice of applications that you're using for your automation that are open in nature, that can integrate and grow with you as you build your automation journey. Look at those kind of technologies. And more importantly, it's extremely important that you build an automation COE in the organization and be the primary driver for driving the automation COE in your organizations. Okay, to ensure that this COE becomes the centerpiece of driving more automation projects and integrating the automation across the various layers of the framework. And finally, but not the least, resourcing. Focus on resourcing. If somebody comes up with an idea about how it needs to be done, he or she needs to stay through the idea and ensure that they deliver the business case. So choose the resources that are involved in the project so that they continue with you through the journey of automation and how we can drive that. These are extremely critical points to enable you to deliver a successful transformation journey for any enterprise. When in doubt, please feel free to outsource. You have some companies available to outsource it. I'm not selling me, but yeah, that's an option that you can look at and work with companies who have done these things before. Thank you very much. Any questions?